and his opponent's microphone will be turned off.
Hello, and welcome to the Office of the Patriot. My name is Myron Ybarra, and I'm your host.
At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for
and today's presentation is going to be just, well, a little bit different, because for the most part, we're going to be ad-libbing this whole damn episode. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be commenting on and dissecting the 2024 presidential debate between mumbling Joe Biden and convict Donald Trump in real time. And, well, my money is on the convict.
Yeah, speak of the devil, they're all walking out now. Biden just got to this podium. So, yeah, the only reason Captain Mumbles wasn't charged with his crimes is because his own DOJ ruled that he was incompetent due to serious diminishment of his mental capacity.
Yeah. So, this should make the debate a slam dunk for Trump. So I'm going to go over the rules for us, and we'll only jump in when either debater has a notable comment or fact or lies their ass off. And given that this is real time, we're going to do our very best to try to get you the correct information if either Biden or Trump exaggerates their position. However, again, I think we're going to be fact-checking, that's what they call it now, fact-checking Biden quite a bit more.
Typical home prices have jumped more than 30%.
I think we're going to be busy tonight, even though, we've revisited a lot of the BS claims he's made over the past 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to make it easy on our viewers, we came up with a crazy idea of holding up signs when we hear or see something notable during the debate, and that includes stupid-ass comments from leftist moderators Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, and this is the one I have. Both are employed by the Clinton News Network, more commonly known as CNN. The signs will indicate if we believe a lie has been told, a truth has been told, or we have a holy shit moment. And I expect the number of holy shit moments to pile up.
Manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done.
I think it's going to be challenging, but the science should help us, and it's going to be fun. It'll help keep the interruptions to a minimum. And I think it'll be fun for the audience as well.
Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price
I don't remember anybody else doing what we're planning to do tonight.
That's why I'm working so hard to make sure.
Yeah, I agreed. Although there are a few people who are out doing real-time fact-checking. So predictions. I'm fully expecting Trump to destroy Biden with economy, energy, education, immigration, public safety, and, well, the military. And I expect Biden to try to capitalize on Trump's convictions and even throw in some innuendo in there to bolster his negative campaign, and that's pretty much all he lives on. And that's why I think we'll be using the lie sign a lot when Biden opens his mouth. I think maybe we might need another sign that I didn't think of until this very moment, the "what the fuck did you mumble" sign.
Oh, I have one.
Down the price of
There you go.
I got that covered. You totally forgot. Yeah, honestly, I'm worried that the panel of the 29 fact checkers who just happen to be backed up by like 60 journalists, and I'm sure they're all, they're all going to be right wingers, right? It's going to fuck a lot of things up, and I think it's going to take a lot of time away from the two of them talking to people, because that's what people want. We want to hear directly from the candidates. So I'm not worried about Trump, being aggressive, because he seemed to have toned his
COVID.
Kind of his personality down quite a bit.
So we wouldn't end up
he knows that turns off a lot of people.
The likes of which we had in
he was doing it on purpose, but
by the time we finished, we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy.
I'm looking forward to seeing him, manhandle Dana Bash or Dana Bash and Jake Tapper.
The thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID
about
mess.
Trump over the years. We can't go into that now.
Mandates, that was a disaster for our country. But
and Trump has actually had to attack the moderators in prior debates because they began to debate him as opposed to doing their job of moderating. And I'm really hoping Trump stays on point regarding the questions that deal with how he plans to fix America. If he's attacking Biden, it should be pretty easy because that guy hasn't done shit. I mean, sure, he's going to go after him personally, but I think that should only be done as a defense because that's the only thing that Biden has in his arsenal. I mean, we all remember the classic one-line response he gave to Hillary Clinton.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
any
debate.
president has in any one term.
So
He's the only president.
I
other than
believe
Herbert Hoover
you know
who's
they have a
lost more
couple
jobs
gotcha
than he had
comments
in,
that they want to
since
see
Herbert
that
Hoover.
if they can Trump,
The idea that
you know,
he
piss
did
Trump
something that
off.
was significant. And the
They know he
military,
has the habit of
you know, when he was president, we were
reflexively
still killing
kind of
people in Afghanistan.
reacting,
He
you know, in
didn't do
a
anything about
attack
that.
dog
When
mode
he was president, we were
whenever
still finding
somebody
ourselves
talks
in a
crap
position
about
where
him.
you had
I don't think it'll work
notion
this
that
time. I think he's
we
learned,
were
like I said, I think
this
he's learned his
safe country.
lesson.
Truth is,
He
I'm
is
the only
smart,
president
and I'm
this
sure he's well
century
prepared
that doesn't have
for
any,
some snappy
this
comebacks.
decade, that
He'll be
don't
much
have
more
any
prepared
troops
than Biden will
dying
be.
anywhere in the world. Like
So
he
I'm
did.
looking forward to that. I just
President
hope he doesn't
Trump,
revert
I want to
to,
follow up if I
you
can.
know, his
You
attack
want-
dog mode, like I said.
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You
Given
can
how
do whatever
Chile's
you want
been
with the
through all
minute that we
these
give you. I
bullshit
want to follow up.
trials, I
You
think,
want to
you know,
impose a 10%
he seems to
tariff
be
on
in
all
the zone
goods
now. So
coming into the U.S.
let's get the popcorn
How
ready
will you
and
ensure that that doesn't
coffee in
drive
my
prices
case,
even
and let's
higher?
go.
Agreed. Let's get to it, folks. Here we have it, the debate with Mumbling Joe and President Donald Trump.
To pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest rate in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that.
That's right. Shots fired. Absolutely correct.
No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months.
Yeah,
and then
this one deserves another
his
fact.
leadership.
It is the
Yes,
worst
they spent
administration in
money like
history.
A bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump.
It was a hiccup.
Technical difficulties.
Halted for about 10 seconds. Dude, he looks like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, he does.
New debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt.
I think there's so many people
So former
watching,
President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year.
Yeah,
you want
I'm
to
going to
extend them
reduce
and go even further,
maybe
you say.
we should both
With the
reduce
U.S. facing
the,
trillion-dollar deficits
down to 480,
and record debt,
so that way it's
why
working
should top
harder.
earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that.
He's absolutely right in this point. When you reduce the tax burden to companies, it spurs growth, number one. And number two, what he also did, and he didn't make mention of this, was start charging these other countries the same amounts that they're charging in the United States for bringing in product. So if you're going to tariff products that you are bringing in from the United States, then by all rights, those tariffs should apply when we bring them over here. And I know there's going to be some people who, say, oh, well, tariffs are a bad thing all around. And I would agree, but if they're being imposed upon us, then we can't just say, well, we don't think it's a good idea. We need to be able to do tit for tat. And if they decide that it's going to be too cumbersome, then we can all go back to the table.
He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine.
Exactly.
And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership.
Yeah, I just lost it again.
The United States anymore. We're like a third
so mine
world
hasn't come back yet.
Wow. I think there's too many subscribers.
Agreed.
Because we're on fast connections, so should be no problem.
All of the things he's done, we've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions
he's not
of people
making
to come
one
in here from
iota
prisons,
of a move.
jails, and
Now,
mental
normally, if you're
institutions
insulting
to come
somebody,
into our country
you would at
and
least
destroy
have
our
some kind of,
country.
look about yourself. You go, okay, well, no, I think you're wrong, or whatever. And you can kind of see that with Trump. He'll have facial expressions, or his body will he'll give those unspoken cues saying you're full of shit.
That $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America.
1,000 trillion. Gotta love 1,000 trillion.
What's happening? We're in a situation where they in fact pay 8.2% in taxes.
Oh, sorry.
If they just
The
paid
1,000 trillion deserves a
24%,
sign.
25%, either one of those numbers. They've raised $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system.
Child care and health care,
sure that we're able to
or rather child care and elder care are the responsibility of the people, not necessarily the government, right? I mean, that's part and parcel. If you have children, you have a responsibility to them. And if you are a good child and you want to help your parents after they got to the point where they're retired, then that's what you do. So I don't think that it is the responsibility of the government to take money from people and funnel it to health care for the elderly and child care for the people who are raising children. That's your responsibility.
Destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame.
Social Security right now, fact check, they're saying solvency
is not to be
under the
believed.
Biden administration till 2038 at
they
max.
cannot believe what happened to
and
the
then after
United
that,
States
they don't know what they're going to wind up doing.
Respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people.
Lost.
What we're doing for other countries,
agreed,
and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
That's the first time I've heard CNN issue facts, because that's all it is. It's going back to the states.
Whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted.
And of course, most Democrats are going to be upset that you're decentralizing government, because everything that the federal government controls, they take away the power of the states. And that's ultimately the goal. So that's something that Democrats live for, and conservatives, legitimate conservatives, that's what when they talk about minimal government, they're not necessarily talking about minimal government for the states and counties. They're talking about minimal oversight from the federal government.
Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the
I still love you, baby.
I know how they
the
think.
vote of the people.
They want
like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that.
Exactly.
But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. Yeah. The problem they have is they're radical, because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth.
Did you see Joe Biden shake his head? No, that's exactly what your party wants, my friend. That's exactly what they want.
And we'll determine
what I find absurd is the Catholic Church has not kicked him out. He's a self-proclaimed Catholic.
Coming together on this issue. It's been a great
100% against abortion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, he's a self-proclaimed Puerto Rican, Jew, Catholic, Islamist. You know, I mean, the guy is. I mean, if anybody's worldly, that's Joe Biden. He's the most worldly person.
He saved Nelson Mandela's life.
They were all against it. It's just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it.
Exactly.
We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, have your and have him
Dude, he's,
decide
like,
on
lost his
what
voice.
your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able
That
to do
could
this
be
is a little
because
like
they
saying,
worked them
we're
for the
gonna
last
turn
7
civil
days
rights
at Camp
back to the
David,
states.
Oh, yeah.
tried to
Let
get
each
them
state have a
prepared for
different
this
rule.
event.
He's
So
on
There's so many
coke or
young women,
something.
who,
Adderall,
including a
Adderall,
young woman
coke,
who
and
just was
something.
murdered.
yeah,
Mountain
And
Dew.
he went to the funeral.
Mountain Dew.
The
I like that.
idea
Mountain
that
Dew.
Jacked up.
she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal: there's a lot of
Raped by their
young women
in-laws
to
and
be raped by
spouses?
their,
Is that what he
by
just
their
said?
in-laws, by their
You know what?
by their
Again, that's
spouses,
mumbling Joe. So I
brothers
mean,
and sisters.
yeah.
By,
Here we go.
Just-
This is the
it's just
closest I got
ridiculous.
for mumbling
and they
Joe.
can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the
Biden
world.
looks like he
Considered the
doesn't
most
know what the fuck
dangerous
is going on.
place
I couldn't
anywhere
see
in the
your
world.
sign. Hold it
And
up.
he opened it up, and these killers are coming into
yeah.
our country.
Sorry, I had it.
And they are
I had it.
raping
Windows.
and killing women. And it's a terrible
he
thing.
looked like
As
he
far as
doesn't
the
understand
abortion
what
is
Trump is
concerned, it
saying.
is now back
Yeah.
with the states. The states are voting.
I mean, he very well may
And
not.
In many
I mean,
cases,
again,
it's
going
frankly
back
a very
to
liberal
one of
decision.
our
In many
conversations
cases,
we
it's
had,
the opposite.
we have a guy who
but they're
is
voting,
suffering.
and it's bringing it back
you know,
to the vote of the people, which is what
he's
everybody
got
wanted,
his memory
including the
is pretty much
founders, if
gone.
they knew about this issue,
And,
which frankly they
you know,
didn't.
if
But
you
they would have.
work
Everybody
him
wanted
to
brought
try to
back.
get him prepared
Ronald
for this. I
Reagan
think they
wanted
might have
it brought
overworked
back.
him.
He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to
looks
do
like
it. And
he's
again, this
not
gives
having a
it the
good time
vote
up
of the
there.
people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it
Trump's
that
doing
way.
well, but he's
Yes, he is.
Staying on the topic
miserable.
of abortion, President Biden, 7 states. I'll let you do that.
I don't think that
This is a state topic.
I don't think they
7
emptied his
states
Depends
have
before
no
they put him
legal
on stage.
restrictions on how far
It's
into
really
a
sad,
pregnancy
but
a
that
woman
look
can
that's on
obtain
his
an
face
abortion.
right now,
Do you support any legal limits on
that
how late a
reminds me of my
woman should
dad
be able to
in his
terminate a
final couple
pregnancy?
years.
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation.
The woman
third
and the
time is
state.
between the doctor. Between the woman and the state.
doctor.
The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions.
Yeah, good luck.
That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
Then that's contrary to letting the doctor
He
make the
can
decision.
Take
because
the life of the
we're
baby
talking about the states
in the
making that
9th
decision.
month, and even after birth, because some states, Democrat-run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that.
bullshit.
That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger,
That's
she's
not
going
what
to die.
Roe
That's
versus
the only
Wade just opened the
circumstance which
door
that
for
can happen.
blanket
But we are
abortion
not
for all the
for
states.
late-term abortion, period. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals,
unconstitutional
not the
law.
Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress?
I can answer that question.
Universal ban
If we get
on
MAGA
abortion,
Republicans in the
period,
Congress,
across the
we're going to
board,
clean up the
at 6
FBI, we're
weeks
going
or
to clean up
7 or
all
8
law
or 10 weeks,
enforcement, we're
something
going to get
very,
rid
very
of
conservative.
a
Is he going to sign
number
that bill?
of different
I'll veto
three-letter
it. He'll
agencies that
sign
have
it.
no business in the federal
Let's
government.
turn now to the
But
issue of
that's-
immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening
cases,
cities
yeah,
such as New
women are
York and
being
Chicago,
raped on
and
a
in some
daily
cases
basis.
causing real safety and security concerns.
Okay,
Given
if you
that, why should voters
extrapolate
trust you to
350
solve this
million
crisis?
people plus.
Because we worked very hard to
Okay,
get a
I
bipartisan
get it.
agreement
You might
that
have a
not
rape
only
once a
changed
day,
all of that,
but you have
to make sure that we
350
are in a
million people.
situation
Now,
where
But these are all
extrapolate how many
no
illegals.
assaults.
circumstance
just
where
robbery.
they can come across the
illegals.
border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers, significantly By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
Okay,
In addition to that,
that's
we
a
found
huge
ourselves in a
bullshit.
situation
I'm
where
sorry, but
when he was president, he was taking
no
separating babies
law
from
enforcement
their
agency. As a matter of fact, the
putting them in
Border
cages,
Patrol
making sure
chief
they
has
were-
been
the
on
families were
talking about.
separated.
Now, you might
That's
have
not the right way to
Mayorkas
go.
endorsing you.
What I've done since I've changed
but
the
you
law,
definitely don't have
what's
the chief of the
happened?
Border
I've
Patrol. The
changed it in a way
BPH
that now
absolutely
you're in a
despises
situation where
the
40%
the
fewer
regulations
people
that you
coming
put in
across the
place
border illegally.
and the
It's
stuff
better
that you
when he
took
left
away
office.
when you
And
took
I'm going to continue to move until we get
office.
the total ban.
All the stay in or the remain in Mexico policies
total
that Trump had
initiative relative to
I
what
would
we've
add
been
to
doing.
that. I mean,
More border patrol.
There's
more
evidence that there's a
asylum
massive
President
sex
Trump?
trade
I really don't know
going
what he said
across
at
the
the end
southern
of that
border.
sentence. I don't think he knows
All
what he
because
said
of
either.
his
Look, we had the safest
inability
border in
or
the history of our
you know,
country. The border, all he had to
his
do was
lack
leave
of
it. All he had to do was
empathy
leave it.
for wanting to do
He
anything about
decided
it.
to open
So-
up
Well,
our
you know, he's
border,
trying to
open
bring
up
more
our
people he can
taking advantage of
sniff.
people
I mean,
that are
you know,
from
he's getting more.
prisons.
He's getting more
People that
girls he can
are from
sniff. I mean,
mental
come on.
institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere, all over the world. They're pouring in.
Here we go. That's fact.
And this guy
I mean,
just
if
left it
we
open.
aren't vetting
And
the
he
people
didn't
that
need
are coming in,
legislation
I mean,
because
I don't
I
know
didn't
if
have
you saw
legislation.
the
I said,
news
close the
a
border.
couple
We
of
had
days
the
ago.
safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency,
Border Patrol,
we had,
BPH,
according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for
found that there
president,
was
but I won't say that,
400 people
but they
that came
endorsed me for
over
president.
that were part of an
Brandon, speak to
ISIS
him. But
cell.
look, we had the
ISIS,
safest border in
for
history.
God's sake.
Now we have
400
the
of
best border
them.
in
And they
history.
don't know
There's
where
never
they are
been
now.
anything
Yeah.
like it.
Well,
And
they
people are
got a
dying
few,
all
but
over
they
the
don't know
place,
where the
including
majority
the
of them
people
are.
that are coming
I'm
out
just
in
like
President
caravans.
Trump. President
now.
Biden?
The only terrorist who's
Yeah.
done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al Qaeda person come in and his administration, killed three American soldiers. Killed three American soldiers.
Dude,
that's the only
I don't know
terrorist.
what
that's
the
there.
fuck he's
I'm
talking
not
about.
saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the
Yeah.
idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history,
Yes.
unquote.
Get the
Does that mean
fuck
that
out.
you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose
Lived here
spouses are
illegally for
citizens,
decades.
and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed three people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every
That's right.
state is now a border. And because of
He
his
used to make a big deal
ridiculous,
about MS-13
insane,
being
and
a
very
nasty
stupid
gang, but
policies,
these Venezuelan
people
gangs,
are coming in and they're
they're being
killing
funded
our
by the
citizens
Venezuelan
at a
government.
level
The
that we've never
bureaucrats
seen.
down
We
there in
call it
Venezuela are
migrant
funding them
crime.
to come up
I
here
call it
and
Biden's
just
migrant crime.
destroy our
They're
country.
killing our
You know,
citizens
a lot of
at a
people
level
thought-
that we've
a
never
lot of
seen
people
before.
thought that
And
Trump
you're reading
was
it
kind of
like these
crazy
three
for
incredible
suggesting
young
that
girls
these
over the last few days.
South American countries,
One of them, I
Venezuela,
just spoke to the mother.
Nicaragua, were
And he just
emptying
had the
out their
funeral.
prisons
Why not? That's what
to
they're
bring
doing.
them up when
This
that
is
is in
horrible
fact
what's
the
taking
fact.
place.
They
What's
are
taking
emptying
place
out
in our
jails and
country,
prisons,
we're
and they
literally
are
an
essentially letting these
uncivilized
people
country
go.
now.
And
He doesn't want it
if
to
they're
be. He
not
just
giving
doesn't
them
know.
the
He
funds to
opened
get
the
out here, they're
borders.
definitely
Nobody's ever
encouraging
seen
it for
anything
sure.
like. And we have to get a lot of these people
I have
out, and
no
we have to
love
get them out
for
fast
this
because they're going to
open
destroy
door
our
policy
country.
that we
Just
have,
take a look at where
putting
they're
too many
living.
people
They're
at
living
risk, too
in
many
luxury
Americans at risk.
hotels.
And I
in
think
New
what
York
really
City and
irritates
other
me more than
places.
anything else
Our
is the
veterans
fact
are
that
on
not
the
only
street. They're
have
dying
we
because he doesn't
let
care
these
about our
people in,
veterans.
but we're
He
giving them
doesn't care. He doesn't
preferential
like the
treatment.
military at
So
all.
you have
And he doesn't care
groups
about our
of
veterans.
people
Nobody been
who
worse.
might
I had
need
the
a group
highest
of Americans who
approval
might
rating for
need to have
veterans
veterans.
taking
You
care
have
of the VA.
legitimately
He has
homeless
the worst. He's
Americans who
gotten
just
rid of all
fell
the
on
things that I
bad
approved.
times.
Choice
And there are
that I
systems
got
in
through
place, and these
Congress.
systems,
All of
unfortunately,
the
are
different
so
things I
overwhelmed
approved,
because they're dealing with
they
people who
abandoned.
technically
We
don't
had
have
by
a right
far
to
the
them.
highest, and now it's down in less than half
they're
because
taking-
he's done
they're
all
taking
these
over
great
schools
things that
and
we did.
churches and
And I think he did it just because I approved
places
it,
where,
which is
you know,
crazy.
the
But he has
disenfranchised,
killed
the
so
people that
many
don't have a
people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act.
1 million who?
1 million of them now.
He says that veterans are better off
since
since he's passed some PACT
because
Act.
what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or
never heard of it.
burn pits.
Neither have I.
They're all being covered
And I'm
now.
willing to bet you,
And he opposed
I'm a veteran,
his group
and I've
opposed
never
that.
heard of it.
It
And I'm
would
willing to
have-
bet you.
it would have made the
We have
news.
great
We would have
respect
seen
for
it.
veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits. Came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke to all
Yeah, were
about
you
those
checking your
heroes that
watch
died.
while you were over
I
there?
went to the World War II cemetery.
In between nods.
World War I
Yeah.
cemetery he
Piece of
refused to
shit.
go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there
Wow.
because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker.
Here we
You're
go.
He's
He's starting to
losing
get
his
angry.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up
I think,
quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a
Joey,
third-rate
I think it's
magazine that's
almost,
failing, like many of these magazines.
think
He
it's
made
almost
that up.
happy time.
He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have.
And that's an absolute truth. The numbers show it. In the 4 years that Donald Trump was president of the United States, military personnel from E1 all the way to 010 received a 10.2% raise during that entire period. It was, incremental.
Just like the new thing with the 16 economists.
Joe Biden in the same period had 8.8, so well underneath what Donald Trump. But even more telling, in 2024, they lost 1.6%.
He made
So
up
they
the
are
suckers and
taking,
losers.
Joe
So
Biden
he
is
should
taking money
apologize to me
away
right now.
from
4-star general
military
standing beside who's on
personnel
your staff who
in
said
the
you
year
said it.
2024. My
Period.
son,
That's
who
number
was
one.
in the United
And
States
number
Air
two,
Force,
the idea,
is just taking a
the
pay
idea
hit
that I have to
because
apologize
of Joe
to you
Biden.
for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed, and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine.
Right there.
A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people
again,
know. You know,
we're
they
talking
talk
about the
numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers.
Of the entire uniparty. So we like to say Democrat, but the truth is it's a uniparty. There's a significant amount of
tell you what
rhinos
happened. He was
that
so
are there.
bad with
There's a lot of money
Afghanistan.
that's
It was
being
such a
filtered into the war machine that we have.
most embarrassing
And
moment
as a
in the
result,
history of our country.
those
that when
people
Putin
were
watched that and he saw the
super happy
incompetence,
when Joe
he should have
Biden
fired
won,
those
because
generals like I
in
fired
the
the
4
one that you
years,
mentioned.
they weren't making
And so
any
he's
money
got
with
no
Donald
love
Trump.
lost. But he should have fired those generals. No
call him
general
out 'cause
got
he's
fired for the
took
most
the job. He's the
embarrassing
man in charge.
moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why?
Well, not only that,
because Iran was broke with me.
The terrorists
I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything.
I mean, you have to remember,
no money for terror. That's
we
why you
had
had no terror
a few
at
billion
all
dollars of money from Iran that was being held
this place, the whole
during
world
the Trump
is blowing
administration.
up under
of course,
him.
Joe Biden gave it all back to them.
President
so that
Biden?
gave them the money to go ahead and fund
Never
the way
heard
they
so much
used to fund
malarkey in my whole
before.
life.
So that was one of the reasons why Hamas went
We're in a
out
situation
there.
where, let's take the last point first.
They didn't have the resources to
Iran
do it
attacked
until
American troops,
Donald Trump
kill
left
or
office, and they
cause
knew they
brain
weren't going to
damage
be able to
for
get,
a
or
number
they
of
would,
these
they would
troops. And he did
they
none
wouldn't
of
get
it
as
about
much
it.
resistance
Not
from
when
the
he was
United
president.
States because of Joe
Here they
Biden.
attack.
So
He
likes
said
to
they're
be
just having headaches. That's all it is.
the
He
politician
didn't do a
rather.
thing when the attack
And he
took
plays
place,
both
number
sides. So
one.
he acted like
Number two,
he was,
we got over 100,000 Americans
ally
and
was
others out
Israel,
of
but in reality,
Afghanistan
he
during that airlift.
wanted this
Number
war.
three,
So
we found ourselves in a situation
the guy's
where
full of crap.
if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute. I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
Well, he says
Keeping
that
the
because
territory in
he's a
Ukraine.
negotiator.
No, they're not acceptable.
We all
But look,
know that
this
there
is a
would be
war that
peace
never
deal
should have
within
started.
a few
If we had a
weeks,
leader in this
if not
war,
right away.
he let everybody
yeah,
along.
yeah, absolutely.
He's
Right,
given
you know,
$200
right when he takes
billion
office, it'll
now
be his
or
job
more
number one, I think.
to Ukraine. He's given
again,
we
$200
had the World War
billion.
III. We just
That's
killed
a
like
lot of
100
money. I don't think there's
Russian
ever been
citizens.
anything like it. Every
And we
time
were the
that
ones that fucking fired the
Zelensky
rockets.
comes to this country, he walks
Well,
away with
I mean,
$60
I think
billion.
it'll stop
He's the
only
greatest
because what will wind up
salesman ever.
happening is
And I'm not
Trump
knocking
will go
him.
in,
I'm not
let
knocking
Zelensky
anything.
know, hey,
I'm only
you're not
saying
going to be part of NATO.
the
We're not
money
going
that
to
we're
endorse you.
spending
Some
on
other
this
country's going
war.
to do
Well,
it.
that and we
But
cut
they
off
wouldn't
his
do
fucking
that.
funding.
It should have never
so
happened.
the funding would
I will
stop. There'd be
have
no
that
NATO
war
endorsement.
settled
And then
between
that's
Putin
really
and
what
Zelensky
Putin wanted to make sure
as
that they
president
didn't have any
elect
NATO
before I
endorsement
take
because he
office
didn't
on
want
January
any
20th. I'll have
type
that war
of
settled.
NATO
People
He didn't want
being
them right on the
killed
border.
so
Exactly.
needlessly,
In
so
Ukraine.
Wants a buffer.
stupidly.
He had the
And
buffer.
I will
and
get it settled, and I'll
basically
get it
we
settled
threatened
fast
him.
before
So
I
he's
take
like,
office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there?
Funny, this
You think
same
he'll stop
asshole
when he
was one of the
if he
people
takes
on the
Ukraine?
left and in
What do you
media
think happens to Poland?
claiming
What do you
that
think
Trump was going to be the one that starts World War III. Meanwhile, this motherfucker.
And so if you want a war,
he's pushing
you ought
us
to
right
find
there.
out what he's going to do, because
I
if
can't
in fact he
stand this guy
does
for
what he
that
says
reason
and
alone.
walks away. And by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from
What's
weapons we
funny
make
is
here in the United
they're
States.
running
Give
the
them
same
weapons,
narrative that
not
they
the
ran
money
in
at this point.
2016
And our
during
NATO
that
allies
election cycle
produced
with
as
Hillary
much
Clinton that they
funding
couldn't
for
trust him with the
Ukraine
button.
as we
He was
have.
going to start World
That's
War
why
III,
that's
et
why
cetera,
we're
et cetera.
strong.
He
But people don't
demonstrated
believe
you.
it
Moving
now
on
because
to
they
the Middle
see
East.
him
So
for
this
what he
is
is.
In
He's a
October,
warmonger.
Hamas
really,
attacked
come on
Israel,
now, dude. I mean,
killing more
you
than
tried that
1,000
once.
people and taking
We
hundreds
have
of
4
hostages.
years of evidence that there's not
Among
going to happen.
those held and thought
Not
to
only
still be
no new
alive are
wars,
5
he eradicated
Americans.
ISIS in like what,
Israel's
2.5, 3
response
months?
has killed thousands of Palestinians
That
and
were
created a
created when he was
humanitarian
vice
crisis in
president
Gaza.
under
President
Obama.
Biden, you've put
And
forward
all those
a
historic peace
proposal
deals
to
throughout the Middle
resolve
East between
this conflict,
Israel and
but so far
several other
Hamas
Middle
has
Eastern
not
countries.
released
I think there were 5
the
of them.
remaining hostages, and
No other
Israel is
president, I don't believe,
continuing
has
its
done that.
military offensive in Gaza.
And they're calling.
So what additional
but Trump's
leverage
the
will you use
unhinged
to get Hamas and
warmonger.
Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the
That's
Israelis
bullshit.
and Netanyahu himself have
Netanyahu
endorsed the plan
hasn't
I put
agreed to
forward.
jack shit.
Endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war.
That's true.
The only one
Okay,
who wants the war
so
to continue
here's my
is Hamas.
issue that I have with
Number
that,
one.
with
They're the only ones
his
standing
3-phase.
up. We're still
There's
pushing
obviously
hard
people that are
to
responsible,
get them to accept. In the
leaders that are
meantime,
responsible within
what's
Hamas.
happened? In
Part
Israel,
of
we're finding the
if,
only thing
if I was
that
just going to
denied
go through
Israel
that peace
was
process, one of the
2,000-pound
priorities
bombs.
that I would
They
have,
don't
at
work
least
very well in
for
populated areas. They
the
kill a lot
sake
of
of
innocent
all the
people.
victims,
We're
would
providing
be
Israel with all
I
the
want
weapons
full
they need
accountability
when
for
they
all
need
the
them.
people
And by the
who
way,
took place,
I'm the guy that organized
who ordered
the
that
world
raid.
against Iran.
They
when
need to be
had
brought
a
to justice,
full-blown
every single one of them.
Intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel.
Because if you're going to
no
call
one was hurt.
Netanyahu a war
one
criminal, you're going to
Israeli
call
was
Putin a war
accidentally killed.
criminal,
And
then these people
it stopped. We
massacred
saved Israel.
civilians
We are
and
the
children,
biggest
and you're going to
producer
let them get away with
of
it?
support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population
He's doing
centers.
an awful lot of talking, and there's actually nothing.
Just getting back to Ukraine for 1 second.
Coming out of his mouth.
We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
Well, then, he'd be one of the Palestinians in a burqa.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO?
We have Palestinian wannabes all over the United States disrupting society.
Our alliances as well.
These are
a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in
Well,
in
they're
Europe,
either
a
in
major
pink
war in
tutus
Europe?
or in man buns at Northwestern University and Harvard.
Into NATO.
So.
We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace.
Everyone keeps saying that there's a serious threat. I wish somebody could articulate why. Why
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I have to see,
wire
before we do that,
for the United States.
The problem we have is that we spend all the money.
Are they so
they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations. Because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border.
Ooh, I knew this was coming
through. Very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected.
Props to one of the best pivots ever.
And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional
How did he
oath for your
violate it?
actions
Yeah,
inaction
I
on
would
January
just
6th,
respond and say
2021,
I didn't.
and worry that you'll do it again.
Well, I
Here we
didn't
go.
say that
The
to
moderators.
anybody.
I knew it was
said
going to happen.
Peacefully
Yeah.
and patriotically.
Trump derangement
So,
And Nancy
exactly.
Pelosi, if you just
Cheaters.
watch the news from 2 days ago,
Cheaters,
on tape
because
to her
this was
daughter,
what they're
who's a
wanting.
documentary
This was
filmmaker,
in
Dick
all the
Tapper
gotcha
has
stuff.
called
But she's
Trump a
saying,
Nazi. He's called him
no, it's my
Hitler.
responsibility. I
He
was
accused him of
responsible
being,
for this. Because I offered
colluding with
10,000 soldiers
Russia
on National
back in
Guard,
20,
and she
what
turned
was
them
it,
down. And the mayor
2016,
of,
2017,
in
2018.
writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down. The mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see. I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her.
on Nancy
and she
Pelosi.
now admits that she
And for
turned
those
it
of you who
down.
want proof
And it
of
was
that, if you
the
go
same
back
day
to
she was-
episode, I
don't know, you
believe,
can't be very happy with her
100,
daughter 'cause it made
it
her
was
into a
either
liar.
99 or
She said,
100,
"I
I
take
actually
full
have the video
responsibility for
of Nancy
January
Pelosi
6th.
admitting fault,
President
that
Biden?
it was her responsibility to ensure
he
that there
encouraged those
was
folks to go to
adequate
Capitol Hill,
security,
number one.
specifically
I
the
sat in
National
the dining
Guard
room off the Oval
at the
Office.
Capitol
She
during
sat there for 3
January
hours.
6th.
3 hours watching.
It's her responsibility,
begging,
and she
being
admitted it.
begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation.
What the hell is he talking about? He went to every
so-
court in the nation?
Scores of cases,
For
including
our
Supreme Court.
viewers, what he's basically
They said-
saying is
they said,
that
no,
he's
no,
upset
this
that
guy-
Donald Trump is
this
going
guy
to
is
commute the
responsible
sentences of the
for doing
J6,
what is
the
being-
people that
was
were
done.
convicted of
He didn't do a
J6.
damn
The ones
thing.
who were
And these people
alleged
should be
to
in
have
jail.
been part of an
And they
insurrection,
should
but none of them
be
were charged with
being
that.
held accountable.
So they were charged
And he
with
wants to let them all
trespassing
out.
at
And now
best.
he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of the
2020 summer of love,
they took
yeah.
over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is
Rhinos.
basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found
And if
out
it
we
wasn't
were
for
right.
Tucker Carlson,
We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all
requesting
of the
all
information.
those
They
tapes
should
and
go
getting
to
those
jail
tapes,
for that. If a Republican
Americans
did
would have
that,
never
they'd go to
known.
Thank you,
So
President Trump.
kudos to
President Biden, I
Tucker
want to give you a
for
minute.
getting
The
that
only person
information
on the
out.
stage is a convicted
Whether or not
felon
you
is the man
watched
I'm
it,
looking at
or
right
whether or
now.
not you believe it,
And
is
the fact
entirely
of
up
the
to
matter
you.
is,
But the information
he
is
is-
there,
he's-
and you
what
can't
he's telling
say
you is simply
that
not
you
true.
didn't know
The fact
because it's
is
there.
that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in
Another buffer.
Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, they turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, the debates we had first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no,
I will give Trump. I will give, or not Trump. I'll give Biden credit. He did. He does remember the previous debates of 2020. So that's awesome.
Talking about now, to denounce the people who attacked that Capitol. What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is
And that
going to be
motherfucker
success.
right there, Biden,
But when he talks about
should
a
be a
convicted felon, his son is a
Well,
convicted felon.
again, he's not a
At a very
convicted
high
felon
level. His
because
son is convicted.
he
He's
was
gonna be
ruled
convicted probably numerous
basically
other times.
mentally
Should have been
unfit
convicted
In
before, but
Congress.
to
his
stand
Justice
trial.
Department
So,
let
Yeah,
the
he's
statute of
mentally
limitations
President of the
lapse
United
on the
States,
most
but he can't be
important
fit to
things.
stand trial.
But he
so.
could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets
Yeah,
out
go
of
figure.
office.
Yeah,
Joe
makes
could be a
sense.
convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son.
That's right.
This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right
they
to
trained
seek
him to say
retribution
this.
against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before.
Well,
no president. In our
Yeah,
history
he's
has had
you
that
can tell
before.
he's recited this
Number
bullshit
three,
over and over and over
the
again.
crimes that you are still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant?
Meanwhile, this
what are you
motherfucker started
talking
World War III. So what's
You
more
have the
important?
morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office
They moved
to start
somebody
that
from the
case.
DOJ
That case is going to be
Alvin
appealed
Bragg's
and won.
office
We had a very
as a
terrible
chief
judge, a
investigator
horrible judge,
whatever.
Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up.
You can
way
tell
up.
Biden's trying to
because
remember what he's
reporting
supposed to say
and
next.
we took in more money in the
He
last
has
2
no
weeks
fucking clue
than
where
we've
he's
ever
going now.
taken in the history of any campaign.
He's
I don't think any
lost.
campaign has ever taken.
I'm fully expecting him to raise his hand and go,
Hundreds of
"Can I go to the
millions of dollars
bathroom?"
keep pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy
Happy
that's
time
after
for
his
Biden,
political opponent because
for
he
Joey.
can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will
So
be
he's
voting
basically saying
against
we're all
American
fucking stupid
democracy?
if we don't vote for
The more
him.
they know about what he's
That's
done.
what Biden
yes.
just said.
Yeah, essentially.
The more they know
So
about
my
what
question
he's
to everybody
done.
out there
And
is:
there's a
Are
lot more
you
coming. He's got a
stupid?
lot of
Because that's what
cases
Biden
coming
says.
Coming out.
Yeah.
He's got a whole range.
As a matter of fact, go ahead and comment below
I don't know what
if
the jury's
you
gonna
are
do,
stupid.
but I do know that's real
And that
bad.
way we
And
kind of
so the
know.
fact that-
And
can
then
talk
I can
about it.
refer you over to
Did you hear
Biden, and
any
then that way you
president
guys
say
can meet
that I'm
because,
gonna
you will have
seek
validated his
You ever hear
position.
any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas, torches, and
I
singing the
knew
same
they trained him to
bile
talk about
they
this,
sang
too.
When back in Germany, and what
This is all
and the young
bullshit.
woman got killed.
Yeah, I
spoke to
just-
the mother,
Complete
and she-
bullshit.
Yeah,
they
the,
asked her, and
the
they
whole
said,
thing is like
what,
a full.
What do you think? Of
What
those
is it, Mike?
people? The people
Complete
who, the ones that got
bullshit.
killed, the one that tried to stop it, and the
Complete
ones who
bullshit,
said, I
folks.
think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas?
So
Or fine
meanwhile, the
people?
moderators aren't going to say
This
a
is the guy
fucking
who
thing.
says Hitler's done some good
Because
things.
they
Don't
have-
you know what they are? The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said.
Where's the fact
Because-
checkers?
guy
Well,
has
not
no
because
sense.
of that,
Fact
but because of this.
President Trump.
Because they are.
Yeah.
Both
Oh, yeah.
of you know that story has been
CNN,
totally
typical
wiped
shitbag
out.
motherfuckers.
Because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on this. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of
Well, I mean,
Charlottesville.
Jake
He didn't
Tapper
run because of
called
Charlottesville.
Trump
He ran
Hitler.
because it was his last chance.
Yeah.
They're not
He's not
gonna
equipped
fact
to be
check him.
president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst presidency in the history of our country.
Yep.
We shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every anchor has, every reasonable anchor.
Those of you out there, just look up the full video of what Trump said at that rally. It's total bullshit. It's all manufactured by the CNN and MSNBC.
And he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that
torches,
that forest,
swastikas.
I think he might have watched one too many episodes of, not episodes rather, but watched one too many showings of Schindler's List. So maybe that's what he was seeing.
We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top.
Okay, so
Pence was a rhino. So
I will say this is where I do agree with Biden.
So
Trump did a really poor job on selecting his closest advisors, his cabinet, and his vice president. He did an absolutely piss poor job with that, and specifically because he didn't vet them correctly. So he had, we had way too many rhinos. We had too many establishment bureaucrats and politicians that were serving as trusted advisors. And the unfortunate fact is he believed them. And our hope is if he gets elected and he is the next president, the 47th president, that he will not make that same mistake again and, maybe take a more hands-on approach in dealing with some of these problems, specifically cleaning up a lot of these bureaucracies. I think that should be priority number one.
Yeah,
so
we've talked
right
a lot
now
about that.
We are on a little bit of a break, so looks like didn't say how long they're going to have this break. I'm going to venture to say it's going to be 5. How many?
Yeah, probably 5-10 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes. So we're going to hang tight, and we'll be right back with you.
Yep.
Live from Georgia.
All right, looks like we're back, ladies and gentlemen.
You both
I guess we had to take a potty break. They probably took a few more minutes than they would normally because it does take time to empty out the depends, to swap out of depends.
Is your volume on the YouTube stream down?
Yes,
it is. Are still 3 times more likely
my volume on the
die
YouTube
for
stream is down.
pregnancy-related causes.
We might have to turn down our mics because I can't even hear them at full volume.
The rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
Can you turn your mic down a tiny bit?
They acknowledge you made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history.
How do I sound?
Number two.
Yeah, you sound fine.
The wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three. We're providing housing for black Americans.
And then go ahead and raise it off of the actual screen if you can't hear what they're saying.
These corporations.
Okay, so what does Biden say to black voters?
Out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the
God, I can barely hear him.
Choice that black
I'm at
families
full volume
have
on
to make
my
relative to
speakers
child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half.
Oh, yeah, he's got to kowtow to the black vote that he's losing in droves.
Got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market.
What this says on the screen is, what does Biden say to black voters who are disappointed he hasn't made more progress in the community in his first term? What it should say is, why hasn't the Democrat Party done jack shit
what do you
for
say
the black
to black
community?
Well, I mean, not even the black community, and that's one of the issues I have. If you would just say for Americans, because for poor Americans, because just because you happen to be black or you happen to be Hispanic, if you're poor, you're poor. Your color, your race, all the things that the immutable things that you can't control have no bearing on whether or not you are going to be wealthy or not. Some of the decisions you make, but they can do things to make it easier for people down at the bottom. And honestly, Joe Biden has not done anything. Trump does. And at bare minimum, at least Trump listens. So he goes to these locations and listens.
Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation.
That's right, 100% fact.
And everybody in the lower income
black families and Hispanic
groups,
families,
they're fighting for jobs now with illegal immigrants, which are driving
buy groceries anymore.
Their wages
you look
down
at the cost
if they can
of
even
food,
find a
where it's
job.
doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect.
Everything
it was
he's
so
done.
good. All he had to do was leave it alone.
The lowest unemployment rate for every single demographic that they track. Unemployment dropped for everybody across the board.
The fact is that his big
unreal
on the
differences
people
between the
is the
administrations.
millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20
Hispanic
million
American
people.
jobs.
They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you.
right.
President Biden.
I think they did. I think they dropped the amount of volume on the mics.
50%
Can you turn your
unemployment. He
I'll turn mine
decimated the
down a little
economy.
more, too.
Absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no
it's
inflation at the time.
noticeable.
There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family.
What the fuck is he talking about?
For health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win.
Did you get an $8,000 check? Because I sure didn't get an $8,000 check. Fuck.
Well, I mean, your melanin count is a little bit too low for you to get that check. I'd probably only get 4,000.
Equity and making sure people have a shot.
Because you're an American. You're not illegal.
No, because I'm not black, but I am brown, and you're white. I don't know if anybody told you that. You're white.
Thank you.
So.
Another persistent challenge
So
is the
I have to
climate crisis.
pay $8,000.
2023 was the hottest
yeah, just give me
year
$4,000,
in
we'll call it even.
history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating
climate
effects
change.
of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as
let's tell the
president
sun to
slow
fuck
the
off.
climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police.
Oh, my
How
God.
close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump.
I like the
Almost
pivot.
every police group. And what he's done to the black population
his
is
face.
horrible, including the fact that for
Look
10
at
years he
Biden's
called them
face.
super predators. We
Well,
can't, in the
I gotta
1990s,
tell you,
we can't forget that.
I'm glad they don't have any
Super
flies in
predators
there
was
because they
his
would all
name.
just like
And he
land
called
in.
it to him.
Oh, my
And
God.
they've
He
taken
was
great
just like-
offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically
I think he's shocked
black,
because the
colleges
moderators
and universities
are
where I
allowing
funded
Trump
them
to
and got
go
them all
off
funded,
script.
and the opportunity zones,
Which
with,
I will commend
with
them.
Tim,
At
as
least
you
they're
know,
letting
Tim
him do
Scott
that.
was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator
Well,
from South
what I've
Carolina.
seen is that
He
they're,
came to me with the
they give him
idea,
a
and it was
specific
great
amount of
idea.
time.
It's one
So
of the
how
most
he's using it,
successful
he's using it
economic
smart
development acts
because he's saying what
ever
he
in the
wants to
country.
say, and then
Opportunity
they
zones.
have to go ahead and
And
say,
the
well,
biggest
according to what we
beneficiary are
asked,
blacks.
you didn't
And
answer
that's
that,
why
and then they give him more
we
time to
have
answer.
the best
So
numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see
He's done a
these
horrible
millions
job,
of people
period.
pouring into our country, and they're going to
He
take the
is the
job.
absolute
And it's
worst
already
president
started,
of all
and you
time.
haven't seen anything
if you
yet.
are
It's a
middle class,
disaster.
upper middle class,
38
or
seconds left.
below the
President
poverty
Trump, will
line,
you take any
you are
action
feeling
as
the effects
president
today, ladies and
to
gentlemen.
slow the
Make
climate
no
crisis?
no
So
bones
I
about
want
it. You are feeling the
absolutely
effects.
immaculate clean
This
water,
guy,
and I
Joe
want
Biden, has
absolutely
ruined
clean air,
your
and
life.
we
He's
had
taken
it.
a dollar,
We
thrown
had
it into the
H2O.
dump,
We
and
had
he's
the
sending
best
money
numbers
that you and
ever.
I send
And we did-
him
we were
to
using
everybody else, and
all
he's not
forms of
investing it
energy,
here.
all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive,
which not only does nothing
climate change
for any of us, but
legislation
it
in
actually
history.
costs
In
us
history.
money.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's going to start touting his Green New Deal bullshit.
Bullshit. HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges.
I hope Trump brings up the fact that they've only built like 7 charging stations with the
laboratories and
$100 billion
black student is capable
kitty that they have to use.
Well, let's see what he has to say.
Get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing with the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because
their predictions every couple years are so accurate.
And then
none of the shit that they've been saying for decades has come true.
The threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
It's another money laundering.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States.
That's right.
And
so if you look at how Trump handles each one of these issues, when he's talking about the environment, he's talking about the economy, he's talking about anything that has to do with money, that's priority number one. So again, if you're talking about the environment, we're talking about the environment of the earth. The United States is a very small part of the earth. It is it's a part, but it's a small part in relation to everything else. And for us to bear the hugest brunt of all the cost of doing these things to help the environment while all these other countries are not doing it just shows how gullible we are on the world stage.
We're basically pissing in the wind and it's hitting us in the face. We're having no effect whatsoever because, like you said, China, India, all these, even Mexico, South America, some of these countries are producing a shit ton of pollution, which
agreed.
You can argue one way or the other. Maybe it's contributing to climate change.
Polluters in the world,
but
number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress.
Got to have another committee. Need another committee, Joe.
For thousands of young people will learn.
A committee to figure out what committee we should have next.
And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily.
That's bullshit.
I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
so every day,
well, for those of you who don't know, Donald Trump actually was the one that was responsible for lowering the cost of insulin across the board, actually made it a federal law. And then, of course, Biden took credit for it when he assumed office. So the truth is, this was a Trump-era action, not
Biden. The very wealthy began to pay their fair share.
Yep.
Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one.
Oh, that's a lie.
I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody.
That's a lie.
Okay,
because
so
inflation is the worst tax.
He's talking about specifically Social Security. So just for historical perspective, to let you guys know, Social Security wasn't supposed to be taxed. Wasn't supposed to be taxed. So we're paying 6% tax on something that we're not supposed to be taxed on. And he's proud of it. So remember that when you get to the ballot box and you're nearing the age where you're going to wind up starting to draw your Social Security.
The House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports is in fact want to cut it as well.
Meanwhile, it hasn't even gone up half as much as inflation has. So
seniors is ridiculous.
People are going to be hurting.
And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the AC, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is
how much longer are you guys going to fucking use that same deadline, pre-existing condition? That stuff has been dealt with since the freaking Clinton era. I'm just like, oh my God.
Another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. Yeah. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things, too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
I think Donald Trump is wrong in this respect, though. I think he does know what he's doing. I think he does know what he's doing.
He said he acknowledged after that he
I believe that this guy really doesn't give a shit about the veterans, doesn't give a shit about anybody.
Oh, he doesn't care about veterans whatsoever.
When he said it.
Yeah, so,
I mean, all you have to do is look at how he handled the pull out of Afghanistan.
The pull out.
And at their fucking funeral, on the tarmac, when they're
checking his watch.
Dead bodies in the coffins, he's checking his fucking watch.
We have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureats you talked about being phony.
Yeah, well, Obama's a Nobel laureate too.
They all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession, and inflation is going to increase and go up.
What people don't know, for those of you who are tuning into it right now, he's referring to the 16 economists who said that if Trump gets elected, that his economic plan is going to be worse than the economic plan that's for Biden. What he doesn't say is that there was 56 total economists, and the other ones were the ones that said, no, we think Donald Trump's plan was actually going to be better, number one. And so we started looking at those other 16 and come to find out, I want to say 9 or 10 of them were large numbered donors for Joe Biden. You guessed it. So yeah, it's I wouldn't put a lot of water. I wouldn't put a lot of stake in what these guys are saying.
But I don't think anybody's buying that. I don't even think people on the left believe that, because it's only been like, what, 3.5 years? We know what the economy was like under Trump. We all remember, unless you're just a little kid and you weren't paying attention.
I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show.
Out of
most
here.
Embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Woke piece of shit.
He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border? That's allowed us.
They care more about DEI and CRT and woke bullshit than they do about protecting our troops.
Oh, you have no idea. Some of the stories that I've heard are downright scary with regard to military readiness, to our ability to wage war. And for ladies and gentlemen, that is what the United States military is supposed to do. We are supposed to wage war. And if we can't do that, that's not something that's a touchy-feely thing and where people are going to walk around in tutus and you don't want to get your feelings hurt and you want to have a mastectomy at $100,000 and have it covered by the United States government because you are now a boy. Now we are so unprepared for what could come as a result of this administration.
This sounds kind of blunt, but
our country
the military is not designed to play defense. Their goal is to kill the enemy.
Left anymore. That's how bad it is.
Either here or another country. I mean, it's been in other countries, but
we're the most admired.
That's their job. It's not to
be
little fucking purple-haired pussies running around wanting sex changes, caring about feelings more than facts.
Of the world.
It's
no
ridiculous.
one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159.
Oh my God, it's online.
The exact number.
Shit, it must be true.
Presidential historians that had meetings and they voted who was the worst president in American history.
It's
Hey, I'm online. Everything I say is true.
It's nappy time for Joe.
History. That's a fact. That's not a
get some choco ice cream, and then you have some naps.
That's it.
The idea that he
someone's gonna burp him.
Doing anything to deal with child care.
Check his diaper.
He did virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
Their gaslighting is not working anymore.
I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing
he's already raised.
That's right. So what he's talking about here is when a lot of these companies, what people don't realize is they take their money and they move it offshore. They move it to accounts that are offshore, so they don't get that money does not get counted here. What Trump did is he gave them a grace period for repatriation of that money. And a number of them, Apple, he mentioned Apple. Apple was one that took advantage of that, and that money came back. It came back at a reduced tax rate. So the original tax rate, I want to say, was in the 30s, but don't quote me. And then Trump brought it down to the 20 something, and Apple said, okay, well, that doesn't sound too bad to us. And Trump's argument, which I absolutely agree with, is you get 0% of 30-some billion dollars, or we get 20% of it. So which is better? And so it was better for Apple. It was better for the United States. It was better for everybody altogether. So he's not talking about giving money away. He's talking about using money correctly. So getting rid of, crappy bureaucracies, and then streamlining our tax system so that way we get what we need and we don't get any more than what we need.
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in the first term.
They could reinvest that money in capital,
the opioid crisis,
whatever. And that's what we saw: the massive expansion in the economy because of a lot of that money coming back.
Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids.
How is that getting here?
Help Americans right
now
how
about close the fucking border for one thing?
Who are struggling to get
there's flies in my house.
To finish
let's kill them with bug spray, but just leave the fucking door open, you fucking dipshits.
Under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China.
I'm earning my moniker tonight.
He gets paid
Angry
by China.
Mike.
He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money.
Yep.
It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come. But he hasn't done that.
So he's shaking his head. Did you not take them out? Did you take them out?
But
no,
he's got
you didn't.
The largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country.
Dude.
They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him, because the border's so bad.
Just to give you guys a little bit of perspective here, when I did the last episode that dealt with immigration, at that point in time, we were at 11 million people that had come across the border.
That we know of, not including the gotaways.
Not including the gotaways. So this channel has only been around for about 2 years. So in less than a year's time, we've had an increase from 11 to 18 million people. So to put that in perspective, 18 million people is the equivalent of, well, pretty much all the major cities in the United States.
It's going to hurt me politically.
Top 10 major cities in the United
It's not a
States.
good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down.
I have a cousin whose husband is a Border Patrol agent in the San Diego sector of California. And I'll just take his word for it. He believes the numbers easily double that just because of all the gotaways.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump. And again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico.
It was stay in Mexico.
He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter.
Yeah.
I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as
he
I
doesn't
win
give
the
a
election,
shit about
I will
anybody,
have that
so
reporter
that's
out.
why the reporter's
He should have had
still
him out
there.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
But Putin's probably asking
I think
for
that's
billions and
I think
billions
that's
of
going to
dollars
happen. I
because
think
this
the
guy
minute
gets it every
the
time.
election results
We
are
had two
in
cases.
and he
We
is
paid $6
actually
billion for 5
he
people.
doesn't even have to
I
take
got
office, but he'll
58
wind up
people
reaching out to
and
Putin
I
before
paid
then and say, hey, you need to
essentially
give this guy back.
Thank you, President
Yeah,
Trump.
the Ukraine war
Let's
will
turn to
end.
concerns that voters
That guy
have
will be
about
back
each of
home.
you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate.
Yeah, we
And now I'm
believe
the
that.
oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think
So
that
what
just
you're
with
saying
the
is you've been
record
doing it
of
for
what I've
so
done,
long
I've
that
turned
you've
around
actually
a
got
horrible
two titles,
situation
youngest
left
and
me.
oldest,
As I said,
which means that you've been
15
in
million
for
jobs,
too long.
800,000
Yeah,
manufacturing
he's never had a
jobs,
fucking real
investment
job in his
America,
life.
Over billions of dollars.
In other words, he's a
private investment
leech.
In enterprises that we are growing. By the way,
And yet he's a multimillionaire. Funny how that goes.
The whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung. to
That's an
invest
absolute
billions
lie.
of dollars
That's
here in
like
the United
full-on
States.
bullshit.
And guess what? Those fabs, they call that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40
That's
billion
total
already
bullshit.
being invested and being built right now in the United States.
I don't know of any
creating
significant
jobs
semiconductor
for
factories that are
Americans
being
all
built in the
over
United
world.
States. It's all in the fucking
President Biden, you
Philippines
have
and
40
Indonesia.
seconds left.
This
Would you
guy's
like to
full
add
of
anything?
shit.
Yeah, I would.
should know because I
The
know a lot of
idea
people in the
that
IT
somehow
sector.
We are.
Everybody
this
says the
failing
same
country.
thing.
Yeah, and
President
for those of you who
Trump
don't know,
is
Angry
shit.
Mike was
We're the
in
enemy of
IT. I think he
name
still is in IT,
single
Mike.
Major country president wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and our
He sends love letters to Kim Jong-un. That's a new one.
Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to.
Dude, look at his eyes.
They don't want to screw around.
I think it's.
Thank you.
Adderall's kicking in.
Past nappy time for.
That's Adderall's kicking in.
Your second term.
Joey's done. I think
who have concerns about
he's on the downward slope now.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it.
I took 2 tests and he didn't take any.
Tests. I took physical exams every year, and you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart.
You can't even ride a bicycle,
dude. A long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago.
Let's see the push-ups. Let's see some push-ups.
But I'm in as good a shape.
The entertainer in Trump's coming out now.
That's it.
I feel very good. I feel the same.
He's hilarious.
I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them.
The funny thing is people hate him for that.
A great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one.
Well, again, it always cracked me up. I used to listen to the people go, I just want somebody who's I can relate to that's real. And so you get somebody who is like Donald Trump, and they're like, well, he's not presidential. Well, you got to pick one. Do you want somebody who's real, or do you want a fake person? So if you want fake, then shut the hell up.
Just take a look at what he says.
You couldn't pay me to have a fucking sit down with Biden, but I would pay good money to sit down with Trump.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
Oh, now he's an 8 handicap.
He's a 6 handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
They're fighting over golf. Oh, God.
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
I'd be like, okay, so he wants me to carry my own bag, then you got to carry yours.
To a specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made,
and CNN knows this, Donald. They know. I mean, everyone knows it. They're just, they are skilled craftsmen at taking one set of phrases and taking it out of context. So they know that you weren't involved. They know. They don't give a shit.
Not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is
they're the paid propaganda arm of the DNC.
And I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that.
He cracks me up the way he says.
I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president.
I wouldn't be here.
That I'm going to make
America mind to be here, but I wouldn't have to be
America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane.
Money laundering for the multinationalists.
Will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing 100%. Going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want.
Ukraine isn't NATO.
Article 5, an attack
what
on
the
one,
fuck?
an attack on all. a required response.
Where are the fact has any fact checkers actually given any information to the moderators? Because I haven't heard any.
With the job I've done and what they've done.
Which, to CNN's credit, we haven't had those fact checks that have been coming in. I'm sure they will come in after
like
the fact.
this, it's like
step up when they're needed.
What the
and
fuck?
Right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it.
That's right.
He's not going to play games with
so
me. He knew
Georgia,
that.
all those little small countries, under each one of those administrations, Russia took them back.
The whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old,
100%.
all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were president.
The question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
That's right.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all.
He's trying to,
and I tell you what,
provoke him.
I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a
what's different this time is his daughter-in-law is one of the co-chairs of the RNC, and they're gonna do a full court press in these voting districts. So they're gonna know if there's some shenanigans this time.
Absolutely. So it looks like we're back.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements.
All right, we're back. Looks like we're getting ready for closing statements, and I want to say Biden is going to get the first crack at this one, yeah.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair?
No, that's why we should go to a VAT.
Nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny.
But he raised our taxes by like 19-20% with fucking inflation.
And then he just lied and said that if you made under $400,000, you didn't have a raise. So that's bullshit.
He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic, and he finds himself in a position
that's not
where
a tax on
he
us.
now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get away with, get rid of the ability of Medicare to, for the ability to, for the us to be able to negotiate drug prices. Well, guess what? We got to We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior.
Trump
no
did that. That is a Trump era action, not yours.
That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credit people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all.
He's talking bullshit.
Causing health problems.
I mean,
I think he forgot what he was supposed to say. That sounded like idiocy.
And give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do, all he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing.
I should just leave this damn sign up here.
It never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. Yeah. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump.
Oh,
President
here comes
Biden.
The fact checkers.
Stay with us because we have
the fact
full
checkers are coming up.
of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now.
And that will be for these guys. So just my overall impressions of how Trump handled the actual, what's the word I want to use? How am I going to phrase this? The expectation that he was going to go off the rails, right? His demeanor. I think he was the best that I've ever seen him. He didn't appear to be rattled. He was able to answer the questions. I thought it was absolutely brilliant for him to use the first part of his time for each one of the questions the way he wanted to use it, and make Tapper and Dana, make both of those two re-ask him the question and basically give him more time. So to me, that was genius, and kudos to his team. I also really loved the J6 pivot. I don't think I've heard a better J6 pivot. So he answered J6, but not necessarily the way they wanted him to, and I thought that was genius. Yeah. What do you think? What's your take? What's your takeaway on this?
I was surprised. I will give Dana Bash and Jake Tapper a little credit.
All right. Looks like we have some technical difficulties on Mike.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got you. Go ahead.
My audio cut.
Your audio cut, but we're good now.
I have to give kudos to Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. I thought they would be a lot more aggressive and really kind of chasing Trump around, kind of basically de facto, defenders of Biden. Because
I think they did that to a degree with the questions. So the questions themselves were pretty much set up to get Trump, and I expected that. But I agree with you. They didn't have the follow through with it.
Yeah, they didn't like previous. Like I remember the 2020 debates. Some of those moderators were just like cutting him off, like going after him, kind of like doing their own fact checking real time. It's like, calm down. But so I'll give them a little credit. They did do a good job. I think they were probably told not to go after him, to let Biden, kind of handle the, try to provoke him into his old attack dog, his reactive personality. But I was pleasantly surprised with how well Trump did. Biden did about as bad, about what I thought he would do. I didn't think he would completely fall apart. I was hoping he would, but you could tell he was, pretty trained, and he was definitely medicated. I was surprised he didn't really kind of go off the rails at any point, though, because we saw in the State of the Union, from earlier this year, he was really angry and just yelling, and I'll give him kudos for that. Biden didn't do a poor performance, but
with regard to him being able to carry his self, I mean, I think he did okay, right? You can see he had a couple incidents where he was angry, but overall he was able to maintain his composure. Trump, I think if you were to weigh the two, I think Trump did a much better job with regard to that. Obviously, it was no competition with regard to the facts and no competition with regard to the presentation. Trump was able to articulate his position, was able, such a craftsman with regard to how he was able to debate, because not only was he able to shut down Joe Biden, but he was also able to talk about what things he's done and things he will do. Yep. So he gave 3 slices of a pie that people are really concerned about. We revisited some of the successes he had to remind people how well they were living during his administration. He talked about how you're living now, and then his plans to repair the damage that has been done, and again, to make America great again. So I think this was a solid win for Donald Trump. And I think the Biden administration and his handlers are going to have one hell of a time trying to get, to pick up the pieces and decide whether or not they want to go forward. I know we have another debate scheduled. I want to say it's by ABC. Don't quote me. But I'm hedging a bet as to whether or not that's actually going to happen, because I think that they don't want to have 2 complete blowouts before the election. So what do you think?
My prediction is they're going to pull him. I don't think he did well enough, and Trump did way better than they probably were hoping that he would do. So I'm predicting they're going to pull Biden and put somebody else in, probably Gavin Newsom, greasy Gavin, or it's going to be tough because people are going to be pissed about kind of sidelining Kamala Harris, but I think it's going to be.
I don't think there'll be that many people that'll be pissed, though.
Well, the Democrats, most of the Democrats will be like, Biden's done. Get him out of the way. Pull him. But it could be, who knows? It could be Hillary Clinton, too.
Yeah. I mean,
I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I'm looking at it from the perspective of whether or not there's going to be another debate. And just going from the idea that Biden is going to be in the next debate, I think they're going to try to figure out a way not to have him debate. Right. And if that means not having him run as president and trying to fit somebody else in there, we'll have to see what happens there. It doesn't bode well for them now, because obviously switching, they're in the top of the 9th, and they've got a couple people on plate. They kind of have to decide. The Democrat Party is going to have to decide what they want to do. Do they want to have Bumbling Joe step up when there's some decent runs to be made? Or do they want to pull them and then risk it with some brand new hotshot that they just pulled from the minor leagues? Who's to say? I don't know. So this concludes today's presentation of Office of the Patriot. If you enjoyed the content, please take the time to like, subscribe, and share our channel on your social media. It's always appreciated. And as always, have a blessed day and stay safe out there.